And raise a glass to the seniors. And some of you, yes, you can raise it up that high if you want. I want to say, first of all, congratulations on all you've already accomplished and how much we look forward to all that you are going to go on to accomplish. And I want to encourage you to use this term, yes, to do your work, but also to reflect and to connect with one another and with the fabulous alums who are here and those even beyond the folks who are here. Even just standing in the corner with Flaco, I heard some stories that you all need to hear. That you all need to hear because they're about how your Bennington education takes you out into the world. It's about how your sense of what's possible here and your sense of what's possible in the world are intimately connected. It's about the ways in which you can use what you learn here about making community and making work to make community and make work when you go out there. And remember, too, that you know out there. You know out there because of fieldwork term. You know out there because you've already pushed your work out into the world. And you know out there, and by knowing out there, you know, too, that there is receptiveness to you and to your work, and that the world is ready for you to make it as you want it to be. So this is your time, and I want to say cheers to you. Cheers. Give people a little bit of bubbly and they just... Thank you, alums, for coming to share your stories and your insights and your wisdom and your stories with the seniors and other Bennington students as well. And right now, it's my very great pleasure to introduce someone who's going to share, I know, some really compelling stories, because that's what she does. She makes compelling stories. It is my great pleasure to introduce this year's Elizabeth Coleman Visionary Leadership Award winner. The award was established by the parents of a member of Bennington's class of 2000 in honor of Liz Coleman's 25-year presidency. So, as they know, I call it the Liz Viz Award because it's easier to say. It recognizes an individual from the college's network whose inspirational leadership has advanced civic or cultural life and, in doing so, has improved the lives of others. One of the architects of the award has said that leadership comes not from some innate quality of character, but from a continual practice of doing and creating in the world. Something that you all as Bennington College students, alumni, faculty, and members of the extended Bennington family aspire to, work towards, and demonstrate in big and small ways. It's something you know how to do. There are few who fulfill this ideal more completely than this year's recipient, Sheila Lewandowski, class of 1997. I'm going to say a little bit about you. You can come up and stand here and be embarrassed while I talk about you, or you can sit there. Okay. I always think one of these, we always say what class you are, so immediately if anybody wants to do the math. The tenor of Sheila's leadership is demonstrated not simply by her long and fierce advocacy of the arts, including her time as managing director of the Queen's Council on the Arts, or by the fact that she co-founded, along with alumnus Brian Rogers, class of 1995, the Chocolate Factory Theater, an award-winning incubator for experimental performance in Queens, New York. Brian, welcome. There you go. In all these aspects of her work, Sheila has had a profound effect. During her time at the Queen's Council on the Arts, she secured new funding, increasing the budget by 25%, expanding services to the 2.2 million residents of Queens, its visitors and businesses. The Chocolate Factory was initially started as a place where Sheila and Brian could stage their own work, but it has grown into a force that has supported over 900 artists and welcomed over 40,000 visitors since opening its doors in 2004. But the real flavor of Sheila's leadership comes not simply from what she's achieved, but how she's achieved it. By recognizing that cultural development goes hand in hand with community development. And by seeing her ambitions for the Chocolate Factory Theater as an integral part of a community fabric that extends to transportation, schools, affordable housing, and the people who go about their daily lives there. Who says art doesn't matter? To take just one example, when Sheila sought to create a fundraiser for the chocolate factory, it was with the idea that she could play a role in highlighting local restaurants and bolstering the local economy, at the same time as raising money to support some of the most innovative performing arts on the scene. That event, Taste of Long Island City, has become its own engine of change in the neighborhood, drawing thousands of participants and hundreds of vendors from Queens. This is perhaps what's most striking about Sheila and her work. The way that she's always thinking about how her goals can work to advance the work of others, and how she continually seeks out opportunities to collaborate. She is, as her brother-in-law, Nathan Thompson, class of 1986, puts it, a fully engaged citizen. I'd like to think, given her deep connections with Bennington, her sister, brother-in-law, and Brian all in here too, that her time at the college might have at least a little bit to do with this worldview. One of the things that we've heard from seniors is that sometimes we bring back alumni who have made a big splash. And seniors want to hear that. They want to know about the alumni who've made a big splash. But they also want to know how to make a big impact in a small space. And Sheila thinks big, but she also thinks small in the most profound and important ways. She's a leader of the arts in New York, in the state, and even on a global stage, but she knows that her work exists in a place, a very specific place, among real people with the responsibilities of engaged citizenship that such an endeavor entails, right down to the street signs. Our world is better because of the work that she does. And for this reason, I'm honored to present her with this year's Liz Viz Award. Now you can come up. I'm done again. You don't have to hold on to all these things. You get one of those. Can we do this virtually? Oh, and you get one of these. That's important. I'll take this down for you, Sue. And I will take this.
Oh, I took that last week in Cairo. Let's see if this will... Come on, play. We tested this, I swear. So I have this compulsion. I want to improve things. And I have the arrogance to believe that I can. I walk into a room and immediately in my head I'm rearranging the furniture. If I care about you, I will create a path for you to fulfill your dreams and move mountains or cut a path through it so that you can do it. I believe in myself and I believe in you, and I'm gonna cry. Damn it. I shouldn't have put the mascara on. I believe that things can always be better. So last night I left a dinner with students who are here, and I went back to my room and I rewrote my speech. It's an example of how I'm always trying to do this. The slides aren't all gonna sync because they sync to the speech that I made before. 1970s in New York City helped define me as I was growing up. But so did growing up in New York City public housing. The daughter of an immigrant scientist and a recovering Catholic mom obsessed with the arts. It was a time of riots, budget crisis, free love was over. We were robbed a few times. My mother, my sisters, and I were also at times physically and sexually assaulted. But we laughed, sang, and never gave up believing that things could be better. I never graduated high school. Actually barely went to class, and yet at 21 years of age, I joined forces with my sister, Eva, Bennington alum, and took over a failing youth service agency dedicated to improving the lives of other girls. My sisters and I were recipients of the services of this youth service agency that ran summer camps to get you out of your neighborhood so that you can see there was a world, there was something else to believe in. So we were sage elders at 21 and 22, and we set about changing things and making the world better. We did revitalize that organization, building the program back, building an endowment, a challenge course, mentoring program, leadership development. Eva worked closely with the Board of Education of New York City, I think when you were 25, to build experiential education programs. American Camping Association on global standards, and I'm proud of what we did. And the relationships. Look around, don't forget that. I'm still connected with some of the girls now. They're women, parents, professionals. Some are both, some aren't. Even I believed we could improve things. We had the arrogance to try and the wherewithal to succeed. In 1992, as I approached the wise old age of 28, I told Eva that I had to go to school. Because I knew one day we would leave that organization and I would be shopping for a job with a GED. I didn't know yet that I was a proficient controller, strategic planner, that I could run an organization. I had no idea. All I knew is that when I went to look for jobs, doing what I did, it said college degree required. And I knew I was very obsessive, compulsive. I like to have a master. I like to pour myself into something. And I was trying over and over and over again to do this by taking a class at night. And I couldn't do it. So I needed to go away. And Bennington accepted me. I'm very grateful for that. You guys are crazy. I was also an artist. Even I worked 50, 60 hours a week, but I still made time to perform. It was my dream, and I wasn't ready to give up. I didn't yet see, and this is something I spoke with a student last night, which is part of why I went back and rewrote things, to say that I didn't realize that the talents I had, the gifts I had, I could use to fulfill the message I had received from the world was that to be an artist, in this case for me a performer, meant that I needed to be a performer in the way the artist dictated that, and that meant rehearsing and taking classes and doing plays or dances. Very traditional. Now I stand with the script of an executive director, community activist, and I perform. And it is one of the most honest roles I've ever poured myself into. It's not boring, and it is as frustrating and fulfilling as being an artist in the traditional sense. But in 1992, I still wanted to be a performer, and I had to fit the world's definition of what that was. So Bennington. 1993, I moved into noise. Oh yeah, I wanted to be on campus. I already had the experience of having my own apartment, changing light bulbs, paying utility bills. I told the admissions office I wanted to get out of bed, go to the cafeteria, go to my classes, go to my rehearsals, fall back into bed. You pay the utilities, you make sure there's toilet paper, you clean the bathroom. I'm going to skip around a little bit because I can't fit it all in. 1993 to 1997, I studied music, Tom Bogdan. I was so happy to see you. Playwriting, performing, and like probably all of you here, a little bit of everything else. I remember anthropology very fondly. April 1995, I fell in love with Brian Rogers, a 22-year-old directing, playwriting, and music major just before he graduated. Brian's graduating dream was to have a steady stable of people he made work with in his own venue, like the Worcester Group. My dream was to produce, perform, inspire, and create. Eva will understand this. Actually, anybody in here, Liz, Marika, will understand this next statement. I did not want anything to do with being in charge of a theater company or another nonprofit. Right, you'll understand later. Because I knew what it took. I knew what the toll of fundraising and management and making sure there's toilet paper was. But I was in love. And I move mountains for people I care about. So 95 to 2004, we hustled. Like most transient performer make it, sorry. If you're able to follow, there's a lot of overlap. I'm still at Bennington at this point. I'm still at Bennington, I'm studying, great professors, great collaborators, pushing that theater, still running the organization with my sister. I know this doesn't sound real, but it's true. I used contacts from running the youth service agency to get us rehearsal space, performance space, relationships, relationships, relationships. One of the contacts gave us access to an underused theater on the Lower East Side. They had a grid. And we rehearsed there, performed there. But it was a Jewish community center, and so all of a sudden our Friday night activities and our Saturday night activities were not okay. So we were transient by 98. I graduated in 97, so that's what I mean about the overlap. So 97, I graduate, and Brian and I move into a large studio apartment in Forest Hills. There's so many stories in this, but I can't get into it all. It was also the year that this wonderful stray dog, oh, wait a second, I need to shift some slides. That's from camp. That's outside of the chocolate factory. Little, it's not the big white building, it's the little one where they're standing. So we had this stray dog found us. We were living in Forest Hills and going to the Lower East Side. This connects to the chocolate factory and what comes later. So this dog, JR, we named her after the Jackie Robinson Park where we found her. I told her 2 weeks earlier she would have been in Interboro. She was our inspiration because we had to walk that dog and feed that dog in Forest Hills. And if you know anything about New York City, it's an hour and a half from there to where the theater was we were working. So we moved to Long Island City, first stop on almost any subway going from Queens to Manhattan. She also became the mascot of the theater later. She was in many shows, our own title. And she spent most of her last hours on November 3rd, 2011 in the theater before dying in our arms. She was loved by everybody, every performer, every designer, and they all wanted to use her. So back to 1998, company without a home. We spent successful months searching for a space we could use in Long Island City, couldn't find one. They were all locked down by the visual artists. And then we found one, a 14,000 square foot space. The visual artists, I think they wanted our money. But we shared this big space with them. And that was in a building called, I told you they don't sink. Oh, it's Brian at graduation. That's me at graduation. Oh, that's not me. That's me. Yes, we actually experienced sex change operations. Yes. That's me when we were early performances. Rapetti. That was the name of the building we moved into in Long Island City. The prior tenant of our space was the Dryden and Palmer Confectionery Company, the chocolate factory, get it? So before getting that, we had been transient producers, lots of crappy theaters, lots of walking into the theater an hour before showtime and having your projector not there. So those experiences, crappy transient, self-producers, really informed what we ended up doing at the chocolate factory later. At that point, our jobs were paying for our work, rehearsal spaces, studio, renting equipment, cheap beers, and mac and cheese. We were living the good life. In 2004, the visual artist wanted us out. Sorry, I'm jumping around. We were noisy social performing arts people, after all. About to be transient again. And then I was walking down our block where we lived with JR, and there was a guy hanging a for rent sign on a garage. And I ripped it out of his hands, and I said, "That's mine." And he put me in touch with the building manager. This is true. I think I scared him. That works sometimes. He put me in touch with the building manager. She didn't want performing arts people either. Dorette was a bleach blonde, beehive do, chain smoking building manager who thought theater people were druggies and there'd be parties and complaints. She wanted visual artists. There they go again. But I stalked the owner. Stalking will become very important to you if you do any fundraising. Sorry, it's true. Fundraising. And I got his home number. And I called. And I got his 80-year-old mother on the phone for 2.5 hours. Olga and I connected. And then she said, Johnny, come here, help this nice young lady. She wants to do a theater in your father's garage. 2 hours later, I'm on the phone with Johnny still. John to me, always John to me. Next day, we had an agreement. Under market rent for 5 years. Relationships. Sorry to keep saying that, but it's so true. The year of power washing, an old machinery ripped out, a home for performance. 2005 was a tough year, really tough year, and it was actually one of the most painful years of my life. Day jobs, I was the managing director of Queens Council on the Arts, really dry. It was great, because that helped connect me with a lot of the political scene, a lot of the art, the rest of the arts in Queens. And then I'd come home and we were swarmed with artists. They wanted space, they needed, and we were trying to do it. We had little organizational structure, no money for anything. Brian and I did everything from taking tickets to cleaning the toilets after our other day jobs. And I felt my resistance to having this nonprofit building. And we weren't getting along. Shit was hitting the fan. Then at my day job, I happened to be talking to this politician, because that's a lot of what I did. And I was making a great case for the arts. Arts, important, economy, education. And I believe everything. And he turned to me, he listened, and he said, artists are going to do it anyway. So why should we fund it? I didn't have an answer at that moment, because I knew it was true. And I didn't want to say that. That was me. Artists are willing to do anything, give everything away to make work, and that was me. And now I couldn't unknow that truth. Brian and I were subsidizing the theater. We worked multiple other jobs, borrowed tens of thousands of dollars, and made sure we paid something to every artist who walked in the door. And this was before this guy, pimp slapped me. That moment, I was nonplussed, was pivotal. I had the arrogance to believe I could change things, make things better. I just had no idea how I was going to do it yet. I started to feel calmer. I was proud of our work, how we were creating a place where artists were at the core of everything, and we were treated with great respect. And this mattered to me. Today, I would tell that elected official that spending on the arts a dime is like getting $100 back. It affects education, development, transportation. I do believe that. Community development, identity. It makes a society a community, and a community a society. I actually do tell them that now. A vision was forming. I decided the chocolate factory was bigger than us, and that was good. My arrogance, and Brian's too, made this place. But now it was the time to set it up, to set it free. This was now my mission. This also meant choosing not to perform traditionally anymore, nearing the end. You cannot eat everything at the buffet and enjoy it. You can't even eat everything at the buffet, period. You have to choose, or choose not to really experience anything. So I chose, and now I perform as an executive director. So what happened since then? What happened since Bennington took a chance on me? And I really cannot tell you, that gave me a confidence and structure that I didn't have. I didn't believe in myself before. Strategic plans, feasibility study, and permanent home, increased our operating budget from $50,000 to $700,000. We work for the theater full-time and have full and part-time employees. We pay lead artist commissions, and every performer who walks in the doors of the chocolate factory gets paid. Salary. They work, they get paid. We raised $4.2 million in capital over 3 years to buy and renovate the building we're in. Theaters won Obies, performances won Bessies. We have pictures in State Capitol of New York, Borough Hall, City Hall. JR passed away, Brian and I separated. And I have performed as an actor again. So we were in negotiations to buy the building, and John died. April 10th of last year, I got a call from a real estate guy. He's heard me talk at a real estate breakfast, because I am involved in all these things. I get up 7 a.m. to go tell them that the arts are important, and he kept my card for 2 years. He had a client who wanted to sell a building to an arts group in Long Island City. I got the city of New York to let us transfer the money. We signed a contract of sale last month. We are creating a place for artists, and we didn't even know it. One last thing. And I didn't flip through all these things, I'm so bad. There's JR. Current council member, Jimmy Van Bramer, is the chair of the cultural, that's John, the landlord. Theater, performances, great performances, times. It's the big event you were talking about that Mariko referred to. And I'll tell you what that's him. Jimmy Van Bramer. If you know anything about New York City, you know he cares about the arts. At a big speech once, and I was there, he referred to me and he said, she's an artist as a leader. The building we're going to. Isn't it gorgeous? Some people sent these to me. That tells me you got to the end of it. That's mine. Thank you. I just remembered I'm supposed to do Q&A, or did I go too long? Oh, sure. What do you want to know? Nejum.
Hey, how's it going?
Went to college with Nejum. He had really cool hiking boots like mine.
Yes, that's great. So when you do talk about, when you talk to politicians about why municipalities, why government agencies should fund the arts, how do they respond to those arguments? I mean, it sounds like you're doing really well, but we're just starting a new program about this, right? And I want to talk to you about it. But how do they hear that?
It depends on who they are. Yeah. For the most part, it starts out, as it did for me, with that elected official who said artists are willing to do it for free. So why would I shift valuable public dollars to that? You know, there's more important things. And last night in the dinner with students, one of the things I said is you have to know the data, but you also have to know the context. And the reason I say data is that if you can make all the economic development arguments, and there are lots of them, and they're right. So depending on who it is, if they're far right, then I really go hard into economics and education, and studies that show the mental health projects that incorporate the arts reduce the cost of healthcare. I mean, this is all real data. So if you invest in the arts and you have arts programming, let's say you put $1 in, you can get $10 back for the local economy. And there are studies of the Gates in New York City that show that. There are there's a whole, I have a lot of them on my computer here. Arts builds community, arts drives economy. There's a lot of very specific data that does that. But you have to be able to do it locally too. And this gets to what you were saying about person to person. In my own neighborhood, I can point to, and this is where I start with my local elected, the number of people we send across the street for drinks and food, or to the bar around the corner, the number of local businesses that collaborate with us because as soon as we opened up our doors, we reached out to them and we collaborate with them. We incentivize this cross-marketing, and then I have data. Like, we're one small arts organization. We have 5,000 people come through our doors every year, and I collect back 10% of the surveys via the local small businesses we send people to. That's hard data, and that's driving the economy. So find data that will matter to them. You have to know what their trigger points are. It's usually economy, because they're looking at a bigger budget, and know what tax breaks they're giving. I know who's giving tax breaks to the local movie studios. And I'm saying, and I point out to them that, yes, you're giving tax breaks to the local movie studios because you see this formula for what that gives back. It's even better with us. So that's how I make that argument a lot, and I look forward to talking with you about it. Statewide, I mean, the dying neighborhood, the dying towns, it's not just because industry has left. And that's a whole nother topic, because I get into how today's industry are the artisans again. We're getting back to niche manufacturing. That's economy. So does that touch on it a little? Thanks. Yes, please. What's your name?
I'm Summer.
Summer. Oh, Summer. Yes, nice to see you.
Just a quick question. We talked about being paid for getting salary for work, and so many people in the creative professions are asked to work for free or exposure as a common thing. So I don't know if you had any advice for people that are entering creative fields who are going to encounter that question earlier in the career than moving into sort of the next.
With anything you do, you have to do what is, I hate this term, I'm going to use it, cost-benefit analysis. Exposure, what does it mean to you? Do not take for granted that somebody telling you it's going to give you something is going to give you something. You need to make that decision yourself. I say no. People call me all the time and say, hey, can your artist do a show here? I'm like, what's your budget? We don't have a budget. Like, do you pay your mortgage? I honestly do. But I do it in a nice way. And if they're not willing to pay, I'm not willing to connect the artists. And I tell artists, don't do it unless you think it's a real give back. You have to make that decision yourself. What you get back, is it of value? In truth, if you're a performing artist, the exposure, 99% of the time will not mean anything to you economically. Nothing. You might feel emotionally fulfilled, you might feel artistically fulfilled, and that's okay. That fits into that cost-benefit analysis. That has a value. But you have to be okay with it. So that's how I answer it. Of course, if you're fully exposed, you should get paid a lot.
That's right.
Nathan?
Just because I know that the chocolate factory is.
Oh, we're wrapping it. I'm sorry.
I know that chocolate factory is also an economic, like a community hub. Can you talk a little bit about the spillover between what you built and politics?
After I had that episode with the elected who said to me, artists are willing to do it for free, so why put funding toward it? That was the first year we opened. The very next election, we staged a debate. We brought in the people who were running, and we had a debate about arts in the city. They all came. The place was packed. I made sure that I was never going to be in that situation again, not have an answer, and I wanted them to start answering the question about why the arts matter, because the arts matter to everybody. There were parents in that room who want to know why arts education is an unfunded mandate. That ties to the arts. There were artists in that room who wanted to know why, under the Bloomberg administration, the arts budget was being cut and then restored, why there was this argument. They asked these candidates these questions. Somebody from NPR came and moderated it. So I see any community center, whether it be an arts one or a library or a school, as an anchor in a community. And we should not be afraid to have those conversations publicly So I try to bring them together. And that's why I had pictures of electeds here. I go to them. I'm going to Albany from here. And I have appointments. I'm not a lobbyist. I don't get paid for that. That's actually probably why I get the appointments. But I talk to them about arts and education and transportation, because boy, the MTA is on my list. And to me, it's all connected. If the 7 train's not running, our shows hurt, and the local businesses hurt. So I see them all very linked, and I make those cases, and I go and talk to people, and I bring them to us, too. Invite them. Invite them, invite them, invite them. That's actually really important. Don't think they don't want to know what you're doing. They do. One more, or are we done? I'm around, too.
Sheila, I think we're in.
Okay.
Thank you so much.